question, is pretty privilege actually a thing? One thing that social media has accomplished for better and for worse is greater awareness of systems of societal oppression and privilege. White privilege, male privilege, cisgender privilege, able-bodied privilege, class privilege. Being on either end of this dynamic doesn't automatically dictate your life outcomes, but it's a pretty good predictor of the kind of challenges you'll face interpersonally and societally. And some people think that we need to add pretty privilege into the mix, which is why I came to the capital of pretty privilege, Hollywood, to ask, what does the research say? Privilege is defined as unearned access or advantages given to someone based on membership of a certain social group. Factors that determine privilege are largely beyond a person's control, and it's often bestowed to someone without them initially realizing it, which is why it's worth mentioning that having privilege doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. It's only after denying that reality while continuing to benefit from that privilege that you run that risk. Now, a lot of you guys are probably screaming at your screen, no shit, Sherlock, but now examine that reality through the lens of so-called pretty people.
Are looks something that someone has no control over? For the most part, yes. Sure, there's ways to use fitness or more drastic measures to alter your body size and other criteria, but the raw material you're working with is largely determined by your genome and your environment. Worse yet, thanks to Eurocentric beauty standards, the designation of someone as pretty from a societal standpoint also tends to coincide with membership of other privileged groups. White, cisgendered, able-bodied, the list goes on. And wearing the distinction of pretty doesn't just give you an advantage in dating and romantic settings, which is not something that we need research to tell us. Studies show that being pretty can get you rated higher on everything from grades to job performance. And this isn't even counting economic opportunities where you have to be at a certain attractiveness level just to be considered, whether it's modeling or just working a register at Abercrombie & Fitch. And that's not counting all the other benefits of prettiness that girls on TikTok have been bragging about.
Not being charged for that extra drink or dessert at a restaurant.
Free $500 Lala tickets from a guy that I met at the bar we were just sitting at. He bought me drinks, took me on tour to San Diego, got me a $100 Uber to the airport, and took me to breakfast.
Having someone offer to put the air in your tires rather than see you struggle doing it.
Free surf lessons from the owner of this ice cream shop.
Why didn't they do that good deed when I was 257 pounds, huh? That went from like one good deed happening to me to a year to 10 of them happening to me in a week.
This is thanks to something called the halo effect, where having a positive impression of someone in one aspect influences how we perceive them in others. In this context, the halo effect is what causes attractive people to be viewed as sociable, dominant, sexually warm, mentally healthy, intelligent, and socially skilled. But before you start telling girls like this to check their privilege, there are a few catches.
For starters, trying to define pretty people as a group is tricky because attractiveness as a standard is extremely subjective. Yes, societal beauty standards have a huge impact on what we consider attractive, but they don't automatically brainwash us into liking a certain type of body type or look. They're also changing all the time.
Anyone who was old enough to make memories in the 90s can remember an era when being super pale and thin was in. Believe it or not, a lot of women in that era sounded like the beginning soundbite of Baby Got Back.
Oh my God, Becky, look at her butt. It is so big.
Nowadays, thick thighs save lives, which is why I'm limping away from the gym at least 2 days a week. Meanwhile, there's not much of a debate over what makes you black or trans or disabled. But even if you're the rare type of person that society universally considers attractive, that halo also casts a shadow.
That's because there is also a reverse halo effect, where depending on a situation, a positive perception of someone in one aspect can create a negative perception of someone in others. Sure, being considered attractive has its advantages, but research has shown that people will expect pretty people to be more vain, shallow, egotistical, and sometimes even more predatory. And that's not considering the fact that society often objectifies the very people and things it lifts up for public consumption. Anyone who's ever been subjected to the male gaze has likely run into this, where being the object of desire turns you into an object used for gratification rather than a full-fledged person. And as much as we like to balk at those viral catcalling videos, feminine people also have a tendency to treat someone more hostilely if they perceive them as a threat. Isn't that right, Allie?
Girls seeing you as competition. Sometimes a girl will front as her your friend, but literally she has the worst intentions for you and she secretly wants to see you fail.
Oh my God, I thought you were such a bitch, and then I met you, you're so nice.
So, is pretty privilege a thing? Sort of, but not entirely. Yes, there are situations where it creates an unfair advantage, and we should work to minimize those. But sometimes those perks can come at a cost that's isolating or even dangerous. So it's unfair to compare them to other forms of privilege that have virtually no downsides. But hey, it was worth it to ask the question, and we hope you're not shy. and asking us some others.